This is so exciting.
It is.
It's ridiculous.
Do you do it with this?
No, I don't want that there.
You have to remember to smile.
I don't want that there. It looks stupid there.
Where should I put it?
It looks stupid. Put it down
Put it
on
on
the
this
chair.
side. Put it on that side.
Put it on the chair. Put it down there. You
That'll
can't
look,
see
that'll
it.
look ridiculous way over there.
You won't even see it. It'll be cut from the video. Okay. Better?
It'll look like we don't have any napkins to serve.
It's true. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I used to go to my grandfather's farm all the time. I'd ride my bicycle on the old unpaved gravel road about 12 miles.
12 miles to get to the farm.
Uh-huh.
Was this in Bremerton or was that
No. It was from Tenino to South Union, it was called. It's a little spot in the road next to Pennsylvania State Park and just south of Olympia, Washington. When I started going, they had cows. They had about 14 cows and chickens. I had chickens everywhere. I mean, just row after row of chicken coops. So when I first started going there, then had to milk the cows and all that kind of stuff and go gather some eggs. And they had a lot of fryers, what they call fryer chickens. So catch the chickens and wring their neck and come up, chop their head off and give it to my grandmother, and she'd put them in a boiling water pot, pull all the feathers out, and we'd have chicken for dinner.
Lovely.
That sounds awful.
Lovely.
It's not awful.
It is too.
That's the way it works.
Torture.
Did you make money from milking cows or was it just a chore?
Well, I got to eat.
Oh.
Yeah, that was pretty significant back in those days as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that would have been probably
Late 40s.
Late 40s, early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I was born in 42, so I probably started riding my bicycle over there when I was about 10, so maybe 52. Yeah.
I grew up with my grandmother. She lived with us since before I was born. And so I had my mother and my dad and my sister and my grandmother with us all the time. And we had a cabin in Calpine, which is about an hour from Reno. And we spent all of our summers at Calpine. We went the day after school, got out, came home the day before school started. So I had a wonderful, wonderful childhood. My whole life, So, yeah.
I didn't know she lived with you.
My whole entire life. My whole entire life until she passed away. Yeah. Moved out here from Maryland.
And she loved me. Her grandmother loved me.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Yes, she did. Because she ate everything she cooked.
Yep.
And they always wanted more. Yep.
So
anyway.
And your dad had a donut shop. He did a couple of things.
He was a manager of Donut Corporation in Maryland. And when they sold out, they brought all their own employees with them. So he got fired or laid off, whatever. And then he moved it from Maryland. They moved to Maryland with my grandmother to California, to Vallejo. And he opened a donut shop. He cooked donuts.
well, first he had the glass shop.
Well, first he had a glass shop.
First he was transferred out here
to a
with the Donut Corporation of America during the war.
Yes. Yes.
And then the other people bought him out.
Right.
And then he got laid off.
And then
So he and a friend from the Donut Corporation opened a glass shop in Oakland.
Selling
In Vallejo.
Like glassware or
Glass windows and
yeah. And then he hated that. He always thought he wanted to get back into donuts because that's what he loved. So then he and a friend split up, and then he opened the donut shop, moved to Sacramento, opened a donut shop in Sacramento, and he made donuts. But then he hated that because that wasn't the same thing at all as being a manager of a whole donut corporation.
Have your hands in the dough instead.
Yeah, where they sent all the donuts overseas and everything to the troops overseas and all that. So it's completely different. So he hated that. So anyway.
Did he switch to something else after that?
No, then he stayed in the donut shop, and then he just went sort of like a traveling salesman type, just did many things.
Salesman.
Many things after that. Yeah, salesman.
And you worked in the donut shop.
Mm-hmm.
You made hamburgers.
Yes, I did.
Don't leave that stuff out. That's what he's asking you.
I worked in the donut shop, yes.
Yeah, okay.
All the way through my high school years, yes. I loved it. Yeah, it was fun. Started making it before I was ever married. With my grandmother.
I was gonna say, did someone teach you?
With my grandmother. Yeah. Right.
So are you making the same ones that she made with you, or did you find a new recipe?
No, same ones. On the bag of chocolate chip cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. chocolate chips.
But you had vanilla, right?
I had more vanilla.
Yeah.
Yes. That's my own thing.
I hated high school. I didn't want to be in high school.
No, but you were a troublemaker.
Well, that's a matter of opinion. Wasn't a troublemaker.
Ask your ask his sisters.
Yeah.
I did get kicked out of school my junior year.
I don't know if I knew that.
He loved football. He was on the football team. He loved that. Except when he made it a touchdown. He thought he made a touchdown and ran the wall and ran the ball.
No, that is
Yeah.
Margaret's fairy tale story.
No, it ran the wrong ran the ball.
I did not.
Ask Margaret.
Yeah, well, she doesn't know her butt from a hole in the ground. But anyway. So anyway, that did not happen.
No. What were you? What position on the team were you?
Tight end.
Alright, well, there was I remember one story about a janitor in a paint closet, I think.
Well, that was a teacher.
It was a teacher.
A teacher.
Oh, that's
yeah.
even better.
Mr. Dunnigan. And he was, back in the Depression era, he was a instructor at CCC camp. Okay? So he was pretty harsh. Then he became a school teacher, and I had him in 8th grade, I guess it was. Anyway, he would walk amongst the desks and see how you were doing. If you weren't doing real good, he always used to rap me on the top of my head with his knuckles, just bam, which kind of hurt.
Yeah.
But after a while, I got used to that. Didn't bother me that much, so he wrapped his keys around his fingers and he'd hit me with his keys. Well, anyway, we got along pretty good. His son was in my class.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess it was my senior year. Anyway, he was out in the wood shop in the gymnasium. It was a 2-story building. Gymnasium up on top, locker rooms and all that downstairs, and also his wood shop. Well, he was the wood shop teacher. Anyway, I was going out there one day, and he was in the paint room, because I saw the paint room door was open, and the hallway I had to walk through to get to the gym. I was going to go set up sound equipment for that night's basketball game. And anyway, I noticed the paint shop door was open. So I looked in there, and he was at the other end of the paint room. So I just slammed the door shut, which locked him in.
Do you know that at the time?
Huh?
Do you know that it was locked at the time or no?
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh.
Anyway, it's about right after lunch, so it was about 1 o'clock. Anyway, I went up and did up the sound equipment and all that kind of stuff. I come walking by, and he's in there rattling the door and pounding his fist at me. I think I gave him the finger or something, and he kept going. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was leaving school, and Superintendent, Mr. Miller, said, "Have you seen Mr. Dunnigan? I haven't seen him. We haven't seen him all afternoon. His car's there. We don't know where he's at. And, you know, he had that heart attack last summer, and so we're kind of concerned." I said, "Well, last time I saw him was in the paint room." "Oh, we didn't look there." So I went and found him. He never ratted me out.
Wow.
Never ratted me out, but he did catch me 2 or 3 weeks later going into the gym to set up the sound equipment, and he came out with a big old bucket of yellow paint and a paintbrush. And I was trying to unlock the door to the boys' locker room, which was, I couldn't find the right key. So the girls' locker room door was open because they were getting ready for their gym class. So I just ran through the girls' locker room, up the stairs to the gym, and he was right behind me with that bucket of paint. And got up to the top, and we were kind of dancing around. He finally just threw the whole bucket at me.
Paint everywhere.
Paint went everywhere on the bleachers. And then he started laughing, and I started laughing, and I sat down. He comes sat down beside me, and then he went downstairs and got his woodshop kids, brought them upstairs and made them clean up all the paint. And that was the last of that incident. And I did get kicked out of school. I guess it was the year before I got kicked out of school for 2 or 3 days.
So it wasn't permanently, just a...
No. They that took exception when I grabbed a teacher by the coat lapel and slammed him into the wall because he called me a liar.
And you weren't lying.
No. He had kicked me out of the study hall class because he said I was disruptive. And I said, well, I'm not as disruptive as everybody else, so you should have kicked them out too. No, he says, you're just constant all the time. So we went down and we had a little conversation with the principal, superintendent, Mr. Miller. I can't remember if he was principal at the time or superintendent anyway. We had this conversation and he said, well, Earl just keeps lying. He's just lying all the time. So I just grabbed him by the belt, pushed him into the wall, and Mr. Miller says, go home. So I went home. 2 or 3 days. And my father, who I saw on occasion, came to get me back in school. And he sided with the teacher, not me. So anyway, I spent the rest of that year for study hall in Mr. Miller's office. Every study hall, I would go into Mr. Miller's office, and that's where I do my study hall. We had one cop in the town.
The small towns, I think, are different.
Very small town. We had one cop. He'd come on duty just before school got out.
How many kids in your graduating class?
28.
28, yeah. 490 something in mine.
Okay, too.
Well, he was president, student body president, so he's always been social. Okay, I gotta put her down. She's getting too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I told you that.
I told you that too.
Yeah.
How did you two meet?
Blind date.
Blind date.
She loved me at first sight.
No, I did not.
Couldn't
No,
keep her,
I did not.
Couldn't keep her hands off me.
No, I did not. He just kept coming back. I couldn't get rid of him, and so finally I just gave up.
So your friends
Basically.
introduced you?
Yes, my girlfriend and his roommate. It's his for the base. Yes.
So why was it such a reaction of no?
Because he was the world traveler that had been all around the world and done all these wonderful things, and I had never been.
Out of Sacramento.
I had been out of Sacramento many times, just not out of California that much. And so he was the big world traveler, and he just knew it all. I just thought he was all full of himself.
Well, you didn't like it because first thing I did after I got there is I walked over to the liquor store
Yes,
and bought a 6-pack of beer
yes.
because you didn't have any, didn't offer me any. And you thought that was terrible.
Yes, I didn't like that.
Well, I was all by myself. You were talking to Elizabeth Ann all the time. So I sat at the pool and drank beer. Okay. But her mother and father loved me. And grandma.
Right from the start?
Oh, yeah.
They felt sorry for him because he was away from home. He was away from home all by himself.
Were you
so-
stationed here?
I was stationed up
Beale.
at Beale,
Marysville.
just
Marysville,
north of here.
Yuba City. Yeah.
So, I was there
And
for
then-
4 years.
And they just kept coming back every weekend, although I didn't invite him. He just would show up at the bus station and say, I'm here, come and get me. And I didn't appreciate that either.
Oh, I did that the first couple of times, but then I started getting a ride down there on Friday night because I had a buddy that lived in Modesto, and he would drive home every Friday night. And so he would drop me off on his way through Sacramento, but then I had to catch the bus back to the base on Sunday night.
So did you stay with Grandma the whole time?
Hmm?
Really?
Yeah, we had this thing going on,
We didn't. We had 2 separate apartments because my mom and dad lived in one apartment. They were managers, and it was only 2 bedrooms. And so they lived in one apartment, the manager apartment. And then my grandmother and I had an apartment across the hall.
Mm.
And so he would sleep on the couch across the hall with my grandmother and I. So that's, yeah.
I didn't know they managed apartments either.
They managed apartments after, yeah. That was one of my dad's things after he stopped
And then-
selling, being a salesman.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, really romantic. We were at dinner with my parents, and so he was trying to propose and pass me a ring under the table.
That's not right.
And I said, it is too, right?
Yes.
And I kept pushing it away because I didn't want that kind of a proposal for one thing.
Mm.
I proposed to you at the buggy whip. You and I alone were having dinner.
You are full of nonsense. It was
I am-
it was all of us, and he
That's-
kept trying to
no, it
pass the
It was
Yeah,
all
right.
of us the next night when we told them.
no, honey. That, because the next night was when you finally proposed to just me by myself, but the first time you tried to pass me the ring under the table with everybody there, and I wouldn't take it.
I hear
You're
it
shooing it away.
That should have told me right there how romantic he is,
I
right
think-
there. That should have been a red flag, right there, right there. Just how romantic he is. Anyway.
Her memory is clouded.
No, it's not.
Age.
Governor Brown, it was a governor at the time.
Mhm.
His niece was getting married the same day, same time as us. And so he sent all of his first class #1 photographers to her wedding, of course. And we got this young 15-year-old kid and a gal that didn't know what they were doing. And so we wanted half the album to be black and white and half the album to be colored because that was a little bit cheaper for us, less expensive. And so it turned out that all the colored ones, which were really the good ones, were she forgot to take the lens off the camera.
With the exception of one picture.
One picture. And so all the pictures we got were the ones that he took, which he took, a young kid, 2 seconds after she took hers. So half of our pictures have my eyes closed or he's yawning or,
My grandfather picking his nose.
So yeah, that was the first thing, yeah. But that wasn't the first thing. But the first thing was when I got in the morning, I had my hair all done up in it like a French twist. I went in to take a bath and turned on the faucets. The whole shower came down on my head because my dad forgot to turn the shower off. And so my hair was just dripping, soaking wet, hanging about 2 hours before the wedding. And so instead of having my hair up like I wanted it, I had it down the way I usually wore it.
Pizza.
So, and then we got to it was 110 degrees that day. Then, what was the other thing that happened? Oh, and then our best man never showed up because,
I only heard about that the other day.
yeah, he never showed up because he moved to San Francisco about a month before he got married from the base because he got out of the service. And so he was supposed to come for the rehearsal dinner the night before, and he didn't show up. But he called and said, "Don't worry, I'll be there. I've got because he worked in a tux shop, so he got the tux he was supposed to have, and I'll be there for the wedding." Well, he never showed up, and to this day we don't know where he is or what happened to him because we tried to find him but we never could. But anyway, and then his little sister, who was 7 years old at the time, her mom didn't give her anything to eat in the morning, and we got married at 11:30 in the afternoon. And so she was afraid that she would get sick if she gave her something to eat, so she didn't feed her at all in the morning. And so she passed out on the altar because it was so hot that it was a nuptial mass that lasted an hour. So she passed out on the altar, and his father and his...
That's Carmen, right?
Carmen.
Yeah.
And his father and his stepdad both went up to retrieve her and practically pulled her apart because they weren't speaking and they couldn't stand each other. So one had her feet, the other one had her arms, and they were trying to both pull her off the altar at the same time. And and our best man was sicker than a dog, but he ended up being the best man because the real best man didn't come, so he stepped in. Well, he was so sick, throwing up sick, that he left the altar about 3 times during the mass to go throw up, and came back on the altar with this real squeaky shoe. So every time he left, it was squeak, 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 and then squeak, 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 back on. What else happened? Anything else happened?
Sounds so
Pretty
romantic.
much it.
Yeah.
Sue locked everybody out of the reception because
yeah.
she forgot to get the book.
She forgot to have so she had to run home and get the
Had
guest
to run
book.
home and so she wouldn't open the door to let people in, so they were out in the heat,
About 110 degrees.
waiting to get into the reception.
So it was, yeah.
And then after that, John, Mom's husband at the time, went into the bar because he didn't know my dad was going to be there with Myona the witch. And
That's a nice thing to put on the camera.
anyway,
Well, she's gone now.
and Myona. Anyway, so John proceeded to have a few beverages at the bar, and quite a few beverages, and Uncle Al had to go in and calm him down because he would go out and fight with my dad.
Punch him in the nose. He wanted
But
to
we
punch him in
didn't
the
know
nose.
that at the time.
No, we didn't know. After we came
Heard
home.
that after the fact.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what happened to the first best man?
Nope.
Like,
Nope.
some kind of mafia intervention or something?
We don't know. I called down there and where he lived, at the apartment, and we talked to the landlord or something. She said that she saw him leaving that morning with 2 priests.
Supposedly they were priests.
Supposedly,
Yeah.
they were priests.
And then he hadn't come. We went on our honeymoon and we came back, and that's when we started looking for him.
Yeah.
And he still hadn't come back, and she never And we didn't know where his parents, lived in Downey, but we couldn't find his parents.
No, that's Tim Eskew.
Oh, that was Tim, that's
Yeah.
right, that's right.
No, 'cause supposedly he was from Seattle area.
Oh,
No, that was in Southern California.
Oh,
We were on our, no,
in our apartment,
we lived in Riverside, stationed at March Air Force Base. And Aunt Mary and Uncle Al lived over in a town called Pomona.
Mhm.
And we used to go over there all the time because they were kind of our lifesavers because we were always broke. But anyway, some family that had grown up in the neighborhood had come down to California, were gonna be there for the weekend at their place. So they called us up and said, come on over, you know, you don't need to bring anything, but just come on over because so-and-so and so-and-so is gonna be here. And we're gonna have a barbecue and all that kind of stuff. Well, we decided that, well, we can't just go over there and show up without anything, so we hunted all through our apartment and come up with enough money, I don't know, about $1 or something like that, and went out and bought a watermelon.
From loose change all over the place.
Yeah, and that, we had enough for the watermelon. so we-
pennies, I mean, we were down to pennies.
Yeah,
It
because it was just before payday.
payday.
And, but I always had gas in the car, always had enough gas in the car. Anyway, so we drove over there and took our watermelon, we walked in, we were really proud of having our watermelon. Well, of course, there was already 2 watermelons there.
More than that, there were about four,
So
or five.
anyway, we're out in the backyard and they decided they're gonna have a watermelon tossing contest. And of course, whose watermelon did they pick? They picked our watermelon. So you throw the watermelon, you catch it, okay, everybody step back, 1 step, throw it again. Well, pretty soon it got to be a pretty long toss. And all of a sudden, they didn't catch it and it just exploded all over the yard. And it was our watermelon that we had scraped up about $1 to buy.
And that dollar had to last us for
And
like
that was-
another 3
Yeah,
or 4
we had
days.
another 2 or 3 days to go before we got paid, so. Anyway, that was our early marital life. You know,
Yeah.
about once a month they only got paid once a month back in those days. And Aunt Mary and Uncle Al would always come over on our payday and we'd go out to dinner and we'd go to Denny's. And we'd have a hamburger. That was our special treat on the payday.
Celebration.
And Aunt Mary and Uncle Al would always come over and go with us. So.
There was a time when we got down in dire straits, they'd feed us.
Yeah, when we got down to Dire Straits, just come on over. And so we go over there and we played marbles a lot. You know, I used to get so mad at Uncle Al because he would just zap her all the time.
This is the marble board, right? That's
Oh
what
yeah, yeah, they gave us the marble board. That was the original marble board that I played on as a kid at probably 6, 8 years old, I don't know, something like that. She put my eye out one time, I had to put it back in.
No, did not.
She got mad and threw a dice at me, hit me right square in the eye.
I
You
said,
did,
You
hit me
acted,
right in the
you
eyeball,
acted like I did. It scared me half to death, but I didn't hit him in his eye. He just
hit me in the eye.
he's a good actor.
I assume this is when you weren't on the same team.
No, it was just her and I playing together.
We used to play
Oh.
together all the time, just
Yeah.
against each other.
And who was it that stormed out? Someone stormed out too.
Oh, a lot of neighbors,
Oh,
many neighbors.
Oh, that was in
Many
Louisiana.
neighbors.
Minnie and Litch.
Yeah.
Mitch and Winnie, yeah. Oh, she got so mad. Oh,
Yeah, but he made everybody mad. All women he would make mad.
I don't know why, I just play.
Is that what it is? Like, were you flicking the marbles off back then too?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
he'd always kill them right before they got home. Always. Always,
And
always.
you have to flick them aggressively off the board.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then just kind of chuckle at him.
Yeah.
I go, what do I need? A 4. 4. 4. No sense of humor.
No.
I started my career at Beale Air Force Base.
Mhm.
Okay, I was there for 4 years. We got married, and when we got married, I transferred to March Air Force Base in Riverside, California. And that's where we started our marriage.
Had Jimmy.
We were there, and that's where Jimmy was born. And from there, we went to Guam, and Ellen came up to Sacramento to wait until I could get housing over in Guam for her to come over. So I was there, what, 5 months? And then you
3
were able
months,
to come over?
3 months.
3 or 4 months, anyway.
3.
So she came to Guam with Jimmy, first time on a airplane, wasn't it? First time on an airplane. Anyway, we came to Guam, and I had got assigned a base house, and it was very nice location, 1522B Marianas was the address. And we had some great neighbors, and we had lizards that ran all over the wall. Geckos. The thing that changed colors and all that kind of stuff. But we kind of got used to those, but she went out one night to get a bottle for Jimmy and turned on the kitchen light, and all this black stuff started running all over the place, which ended up being termites.
Roaches.
And
Roaches.
Or roaches, roaches. So anyway, come to find out, we turn on certain lights and the circuit breaker would pop and go out. We called the civil engineer shop to tell them to come out and spray our house and all that kind of stuff. And that did no good. And so we wanted to have the walls replaced because we also had termites. And when it started popping the circuit breaker, I couldn't get any results out of the civil engineer people who were supposed to do it because they had so many jobs ahead of us. So I called the fire marshal, and he come out and declared the house a fire hazard, and therefore that would put us to the top of the list. So they came out about the next day or 2 days later and ripped every interior wall out of the house. And so we had the kitchen appliances with the kitchen counter and all that kind of stuff, but no walls. No walls in the bathroom, so there was just a toilet and bathtub sitting in the middle of the room.
The only wall they ripped off was the wall between the bathroom and the front room. That's the only wall they ripped out.
Yeah. I thought they ripped out the whole walls.
No, just the one.
Anyway, we had a great conversation piece because everybody wanted to come over and see our toilet in the front room. And anyway, we got that fixed, and then lo and behold, we found out later that the house had been sitting on a roach bed. And it was a duplex house, and they actually just took the whole duplex out.
That's why.
But that was after we left.
That's why we couldn't get rid of it, because they spray and then they'd be gone for about 2 days and then they'd be right back again. So then we found out that our house was supplying the whole island of Guam almost with roaches, because that was the whole entire, under both duplexes was total roach bed. So.
And then we left there and came back to California and went to Barksdale Air Force Base in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Where Chris was born.
221 Avenue C East was our address. And it was a duplex, and that's where we met Mitch and Winnie. And she hated me after a while because we played marbles.
She just wouldn't play marbles with you anymore.
But it was also very ironic because we were pulled up in front of a house, getting out of the car, and the house had just been assigned to us. We had just gotten the keys to it, and we come walking up the sidewalk, and I was walking up with Jimmy, and the door opened in the unit right next to ours, and the doors were very close together. And this gal come running out, screaming my name, and I'm like, what? Threw her arms around me, and it was a girl that I'd gone to high school with.
And she was moving out of our duplex.
Then she and her husband had lived in our duplex.
And staying with the people next door until they left. It was his old girlfriend, yes.
It was
Bobby.
She was a girlfriend at one, not very long, it was a very short period of time. So, but anyway, so we were there
Small world.
We were there for 2.5 years, 1968 to 1970. We left there in June of 70. I went to Southeast Asia, North Thailand. Was there for a year. Ellen stayed here with the kids
in California.
In California, in Sacramento. She lived about a mile and a half. We found an apartment, a mile and a half from your parents.
From my dad, Mom.
And so then I came back from there. We went to Mather.
And Janet while he was gone.
Yeah, Janet was born while I was gone. And then I got back and we moved to Mather, and we were there from till 1974, June of 1974. Jeff had been born in February of 1974, so we got orders to go to the Azores. And we drove across the country in our little Volkswagen station wagon
4 little kids.
with 4 kids. Jeff was in a bassinet in the back of the station wagon. It was during the gas crisis, so you could only buy gas every other day depending on your license plate. If it was an odd number at the end, you bought on the odd days. If it was even, you bought on the even days. Well, I'm trying to drive across the United States. Of course, I was on military orders, so the people were very generous with give me gas because I'd show my military travel orders. So anyway, we did that, went to the Azores, we were there for 2 years. Lived in the slums for a year. And when I mean slums, it was slums. And had the old cobblestone streets, ox-drawn carts come ricketing with the wooden wheels come ricketing down the street. Garbage pickup was every day, but you had to be careful when you put your garbage out because people would go through it. So we always tried to put our garbage out just before they got there.
Because it would leave a mess.
And a few times.
It would have been okay if they hadn't left a mess.
A few times I put some really dirty diapers on top just in case they got into it.
Deter them.
To deter them, yeah. Anyway, then we got to move on to base.
Was it right when you first gone to the Azores is when you came back to California for 6 months or something?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Pretty much right when you got there.
Left me in the slums with the 4 kids, for 6 weeks.
Because you're doing some training, wasn't it?
Yes, I was going to leadership school.
Yes. And that's when they had the Portuguese uprising over there. And our best friend, it was a policeman, the day that he left, said, I cannot believe that he left you and the kids here by yourselves because it could get really, really bad. And if they come and take over, then my family comes first, but after my family, I'll get you out.
That was nice.
Wasn't that nice?
Was there any
That's
problem with that?
That's a stretch.
What?
Did that ever amount to any problems?
You
or-
weren't there, so how do you know it was a stretch? What'd you say, honey?
Did that ever amount to any problems?
No.
The
No, but
uprising?
we had to be really careful. We were told not to let our kids get, of course, our kids were too little, but for like teenagers, they said, do not let your kids ride on any Portuguese buses because you might not see them again, or, so, yeah.
Mhm.
So we also had like typhoons over there, and so while he was gone, in the middle of the night, we had this almost like a typhoon where the roof didn't leak that night.
No.
But we did have, it didn't, actually, one night when he was there, we had water in the front room, about 2 inches deep in the front room, the whole front room, but while he was gone, it was bad enough I had buckets all over the front room because we had about 16 leaks, and so I had buckets everywhere. And we had kerosene heaters, no heat, and so it was freezing cold, and so that's the night that I waited for all the kerosene to be gone, and then I had to go out and get more kerosene, and so we had this
Put in our space heaters.
yeah, we had these real rickety steps out, the concrete steps that went down to the bottom, to the ground from the house. And we had a big kerosene drum out there that you had to squat down and unscrew the lid, the cap, and then get kerosene to come into your bucket, your heater. And so I'm squatted down, the rain is just dousing me, and I got his raincoat over my head like this, and I got the kerosene heater, and I'm squatted down, and all of a sudden I see these 2 eyes under there about this, and they're like this, and it was a big creature, because it was a shrew, not rats, because shrews are way bigger than rats.
It's a little mouse.
They're way bigger than rats. And so I screamed, and I fell back, and the thing goes off my head, and I'm just instantly soaked, and this rat comes out, and comes over my leg,
A shrew, even.
a shrew over my leg, and up the concrete wall, and up over the top. But by now, I'm just doused, and Jimmy's at the top of the stairs crying, because he thinks I'm getting killed out there. But in the meantime, he's in the States, nice and cozy and warm and dry, and yeah.
Basking in the sunshine.
Yeah, my mother was ready to kill him.
Yeah.
She was ready to kill him when he came back. Yeah, for leaving me over there.
What
But we made it.
What was it like communicating when you were when you were in like Southeast Asia or when you were?
Oh, Southeast Asia was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yes, because we have to go through what they call the Mars station, which was a radio relay. So I would say, hi honey, how are you? And the Mars operator, which was normally a guy, would, hi honey, how are you? To Ellen.
Yeah, it was lovely.
And then she would say it back, and then he'd relay to me. Didn't like that at all.
That was for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we started doing little tape things. Diskette,
Oh, yeah,
the little recording tapes.
right,
So,
Or like video messages.
right.
Or
Not
like
video,
audio messages.
audio.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that was a little better.
Yeah.
Still sucked, but
Yeah.
that was a little better. I used to try and call her when I was in the States in school and she was in the Azores. I used to try and call her every night, but it couldn't always get through. Well, on the mouse night,
Shrew.
I-
Not mouse, shrew.
I couldn't get through that night, so that she was really pissed that I didn't call that night, so.
Now, if you called that night, I would have said, get me out of here because I'm going home. But you lucked out. You lucked out, so anyway.
Anyway, and then, so when we left the Azores, we put in for a consecutive overseas tour to England. Actually, we had requested England, Germany, and Spain. And we were fortunate enough to go to England. 3 wonderful years there. Loved it, loved the country, loved the people.
Made some really good friends.
26 Heatherset Way, Red Lodge is where we lived.
You were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You
you were there.
remember the address now.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You remember the street first, but we were back there.
no.
Yeah, we were put in just,
We just lucked out.
yeah.
Well, I forgot our first assignment to Mather was at 116 Haddon Way.
Mm.
1970.
I don't know how you remember.
1971 to 74.
I can't remember my address from 2 years ago. I don't know how you remember this. And you were in Germany for a while, weren't you? Just you?
Oh, early in my career, but before I met Ellen.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering where that was lined
Well,
up.
Right.
Matt, you didn't tell him that story, but we were in England. We were in England and ended up living right across our yard from his ex-German girlfriend that he had when he was in Germany. Is that not really ridiculous? And that was 3 years of interesting. those were
Nosy Rosie.
Interesting 3 years, yes, where she would climb the 6-foot fence with her basket of laundry.
Yeah.
And come over and wash her clothes in my washer because we lived in base housing, she lived on the economy. And so we didn't have to pay for that, so she would come over and do all her laundry at my house, our house.
It was a bigger machine.
Bigger, yeah, we had the American, washer and dryer, and she had British washer and dryer, which was very small. So she would come over, and if I was doing my laundry, she would just take my laundry out of my machines and just sit on the side so she could get hers done first.
You're just walking through your house and she's standing there.
Oh yeah,
And
she would.
through the back
She
door.
wouldn't walk. She would. Finally, I started locking the door because she would just walk right in. One time, she walked right in me. I was sitting on the toilet in the bathroom and just sat in the tub and talked to me. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, she was definitely different. But yeah,
And Ellen never seasoned my food enough, so she would come over when Ellen's cooking and
pick up the pot, pick up
taste
the
it,
lid.
taste it. Oh, that needs this and this and this and this.
Yeah. So she'd make everything very, very salty, and then he'd sit down. How come this is so salty? I wouldn't tell him because he'd be mad. So. Yeah.
We left England, went to Fairchild Air Force Base, Spokane, Washington. We lived on Elm Street. I can't remember what the number was, but
Wow.
I'll think of it. And had a really nice house there, and loved it. Loved the winters and all that. And that's where Jimmy was in middle school at the time we got there.
High
And
school.
Chris- He was in middle school first, wasn't he?
No, it was in high school.
High school,
Yeah.
okay.
It was in
Freshman in high school.
Freshman, yeah, freshman,
And-
junior, senior, yeah, freshman, junior,
And
senior,
Chris was in middle school, or
Right.
elementary,
middle school. He was like 7th grade.
okay. And Janet was.
No,
which
he was
one?
6th grade. Jimmy was 9th grade. He was
Yeah,
6th grade. Jimmy
okay,
was 9th
right.
grade.
And then Janet was, I forget whatever, Jeff was in kindergarten.
He was in kindergarten, yeah.
Anyway, we were there, great assignment, loved the people. Mount St. Helens erupted, blue, we were covered with ash for 2 or 3 weeks. From that, ash was about that deep in our front yard. It was everywhere. Took 2 or 3 weeks to clear it from the base because we had to work 12-hour shifts, removing all the ash so they could take it away and bury it someplace. I don't know where the hell they took it, but anyway, stuff, you had to move it wet. You couldn't move it dry because it would just, it'd be a cloud. So you had to get it all down first,
That was like cement.
and then it was like moving cement. So it was quite an ordeal, but pick up Jeff in the little school bus, and all the little school kids had their little masks on, like we're wearing masks now. And,
Like a bunch of little miniature bank robbers going to rob a bank.
yeah. So, but yeah, and then from there, I got orders to Korea. So Ellen and the kids stayed there while I went to Korea. And I was there for a year. And I had the opportunity to take them to Korea, and I said, well, I'm gonna go over there and look first before I bring them over, because the kids were getting up in school, and I got over there and I says, no way. Because I would have worked on this side of town, and the government housing was on this side of town, and there was no way I was gonna endure that.
Traveling back and forth?
That traveling back and forth, and outside of every base was all these wonderful little bars. I didn't want to expose my children to that environment. And so anyway, I stayed there. They stayed in Fairchild. Ellen had a wonderful year at Fairchild, teaching Jimmy to drive,
Oh, yeah.
driving in the snow. So anyway, I spent a wonderful year all by myself in Korea. Came back halfway through it. Jeff didn't recognize me when I got to the airport because I had grown a mustache. And I was home for what, about 15 days?
Something like that.
that.
For Christmas.
Then I went back and was fortunate enough to get reassigned to Mather. So we all came to Mather. Jimmy originally wanted to stay in Spokane, or stay in Fairchild to go to school because it was going to be his senior year. And these friends of ours
His best
said he
friend.
could stay with them. Their son was his best friend. And lo and behold, they got orders to go to Texas. So, hence Jimmy's, there's other family up there, I forget what their name was, that said that Jimmy could stay with them.
Rosario's.
Yeah. And Jimmy says, no, I'm gonna go to California with the family. So he came to California with us, and we went to Mather. That's when we ended up at 404 Woodring Avenue. And we were here for what,
3 years.
three years, 3.5 years. And they said, we're gonna send you to Texas. And I said, no, we're not sending me to Texas. I retired.
Is that's what made you retire? You retired and moving around?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jimmy was a senior in high school.
Yeah.
Oh no, Jimmy had already graduated from high school.
Yeah.
Chris was
a senior.
and Janet were in. Chris
Yeah.
was a junior.
Junior, he was, yeah, he
A
was a
junior,
senior.
Janet was a freshman,
Right.
and Jeff was in middle school. I said, no, we're done moving. So we came out to Folsom because that's where the kids were going to school, and check out this small little town. We decided, well, yeah, we kind of like this. So we come out here to look for a house, of which there was none for sale except new construction, because we needed a minimum 4-bedroom. We could find 3 bedrooms, but not 4 bedrooms. And so we ended up finding this house, and here we are, 34 years later, still in the same place.
With leaks.
With leaks, new leaks now.
With leaks.
Back to the
With
Azores.
new leaks here, yeah. So,
Back in the Azores.
Mm-hmm.
no, the leaks a lot worse than the Azores, believe,
Okay.
trust me.
Do you have a favorite place you were stationed, do you think, or?
Uh,
I loved England.
we loved England. We liked the Azores.
Spokane was my favorite in the States, and England was my favorite overseas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. When we went from the Azores to England, I had consecutive travel authorization, which means I could bring my family with me and housing would be available. However, we got there, and of course, housing was not available. So we were in this little hotel called the Bird in the Hand, which you were there. And at the time, it was a pub, but it had a few trailers out in the yard, which had bunk beds and they had bathroom in it, didn't they?
Bunk beds and a bathroom.
And a
That was it.
bathroom.
That was it. Nothing else.
And that was it. And the housing officer from RAF Lakenheath, which was a sister base about 6 miles away, was trying to get me to rent a house on the economy. And I heard enough stories about houses on the economy, I didn't want to do that, so I had to turn in a couple of addresses every week. But anyway, I finally forced them to come up with a house, and they finally did, 4-bedroom out in Red Lodge. And, but we were in the bird in hand for how long?
About 2 months.
2 or 3 months,
Yeah,
something
maybe 3
like that.
months, yeah.
And we ate out every day, sometimes at the pub, sometimes at the NCO club, which was just down the street from where we were, because the Bird in the Hand Hotel was right outside the gate of the base. And yeah, we were there for a long time. It was a fun experience, but the eating out got a little old because Jeff was a little restless, because Jeff was 2.5 years old, something like that, 3 years old. He'd get underneath the table at the club. And while we're eating, he'd climb underneath the table and sit there and just raise hell. You know?
Because we spent a lot of time in there with the kids,
Yeah, we did.
playing games and stuff.
So, well, yeah, because there was a couple of military families in there at the same time we were, so.
Well, I'll never forget our car ride out to Golden Holland.
Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. 5-speed stick shift, driving on the wrong side of the road
For the first time in 40 years.
for the first time in 40 years.
Almost gave you a heart attack.
Yeah.
And then to luck out and find our residence on the very first turn
Mm-hmm.
in Red Lodge.
Mhm.
We saw the name of the street and knew that was it.
Well, Red Lodge isn't very big. It really isn't.
Well, no, it was a hell of a lot bigger now than it was then.
Right.
You know. We had a Volkswagen bus, bright orange, and we could take a lot of people. We decided to go to London. We had never been to London.
To McDonald's, we wanted to find McDonald's.
Well, we knew there was a McDonald's in London,
Because the
we-
British hamburgers were awful.
so anyway, we took off and went to London looking for McDonald's. Nobody could help us find McDonald's. I had an address, but I was trying to read the map and drive in London at the same time. We thought we were getting close. We're driving and there's nobody on the streets, and we're in this, which ended up being the parliamentary area, whatever you want to call that.
Whitehall.
Whitehall. Anyway, I'm going past this intersection and I saw a Bobby. There's a Bobby down there, I'll go ask him. So I stopped, got out of the car, walked down to where he was at, and he just, and I asked him if he knew where McDonald's was, and he did not. And I happened to glance at the door, and it was number 10 Downing Street.
I thought he wouldn't talk to you at first.
Well, he wouldn't at first.
Yeah.
And anyway,
We did finally.
we did finally find it, yeah. And we drove London, 2 or 3 times. It was always an adventure to drive to London.
It must be. I can't imagine driving there. It seems terrifying.
Well, it was a Volkswagen bus, American specs. So my steering wheel was on the wrong side.
That's a big car.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's a van.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it got a little tight in some of the circles once in a while, especially if there was a truck at the same time. Yeah, it was quite exciting.
Yes.
But it used to kind of freak Ellen out when going down the road, and of course she'd be sitting in the passenger seat, which is right next to the middle line of the road, because I'm on the other side. And you know, driving an American spec car in England is not fun, but we did it, survived.
Yes, we did.
She said she would never drive it. I'm never driving that big thing. I'm never driving that big thing. She drove it.
Didn't have much choice.
LSA, Logistics Systems Architects,
Was first.
which had a government contract at McClellan. to develop a logistics systems for the Air Force in support of the F-117 stealth fighter. And I was with them for 5 years, the LSA. My part of my operation was out in the warehouse, running a team out in the warehouse to assist the government with our computer system as we developed the various applications. And after 5 years, SAIC, which is Science Application International Corporation, bought out LSA. And one of the things that Dan Wagner, the founder of LSA, one of the provisions he did was all my employees get vesting rights for as long as they've worked for the company. You will be vesting them into SAIC. So I started out 5 years vested with SAIC. And anyway, a long story short, I was on a year-to-year contract, so every year the contract had to be renewed or I didn't have a job. And it worked out to where, I guess it was, 10 years? Fine, total of 10 years, and the government decides to shut down McClellan. So anyway, they decided in their infinite wisdom that they would transfer the logistics system that my company had built for the program to Lockheed Martin, who built the airplane down in Palmdale. And so that was all said and good. So Palmdale, the Lockheed people came up here and the government said, we're going to give you this system. And they said, fine. And so they said, well, we'll put SAIC on contract to move everything down to Palmdale, load it up, stage it, and train our people how to operate it. So I was very fortunate to the guy down at Lockheed that came up. That he and I had become pretty good friends, and he requested me to be the liaison guy down in Palmdale with the company. So I went down there. I figured, well, maybe I'll get a year out of this contract, maybe a year and a half total. 13 years later, I was still there. And that's when they retired the airplane, retired the program. I was 68. Time to retire. Company said, well, we can probably find a place for you in Ohio. I said, no, not going to happen. But it ended up being a wonderful career. And I missed it from the day I retired, and to a degree, I still miss it. I really loved what I did, loved the people I worked with.
You had some pretty crazy work trips.
Caracas, Venezuela was one of them. Not related to the program, to the stealth program. It was a company deal. They had a foothold in doing some business with the government of Venezuela in their oil production, whatever. So we went down to assist their people in their logistics program that they had and advise them, and was there for a week, which they were not, the people working there were very proud people, so we had to be very careful as not to step on their toes, which was a little difficult, but that was just prior to the lot of turmoil in Venezuela at that time, still is. But we were in downtown Caracas, and we went out for lunch, and it was very strange to me. About every 10 feet, there was a cop with an Uzi on his back, which is their everyday life there, which was a little strange. But they did put us up in a wonderful, wonderful hotel. I mean, it was 5-star, first class. It was great. Did our laundry every day for us and everything. It was all folded up, laid on your bed when you got back.
Probably missed not doing your own laundry. Knowing you.
So, but yeah, that was quite a trip, yes. But I also had some, in the early days of the program, had some trips to where the airplane was still classified, nobody knew it existed. The airplane was built in Burbank, California. That's where Lockheed was located at the time, actually at the Burbank airport. The airport was on one side of the runway, Lockheed was on the other side of the runway. And they built the airplane in the Lockheed hangars. And then when the airplane was assembled, they would take the wings off of it, bring a C-5 in at night, C-5 Air Force C-5 cargo plane, open up the front of the airplane, shroud it off, push the 117 in the airplane,
Fly's gonna be on your video.
fly it off down to Tonopah Test Range. That's where it was housed. And then I had a few trips to Tonopah, which was very exciting because we would fly from Sacramento maybe to Burbank, get a rental car, drive over to Ontario, get it on an airplane and fly to Las Vegas, go check into a hotel, get all checked in, leave, get in a rental car, drive out to Nellis Air Force Base, get on an airplane, and away we'd go for a week. Come back, go back into the hotel, check out of the hotel, go get on an airplane, fly back to Sacramento.
It's just in mystery flights.
Never had the window shades up, so you never knew. I mean, we ended up knowing that I was at Tonopah, later, but no, we never, you get on the airplane, window shades were down, and it was the kind of airplane that you entered through the back, through the tail, the stairs. And they had 2 Air Force security police guys sitting in the back seats back there, armed. So.
Never knew where you were going at first.
Never knew. Always a different flight time. Always different flight time. Sometimes it'd be 45 minutes difference, sometimes 25, you never knew.
And you couldn't talk about anything you're working on.
No.
Did you ever tell Grandma any of it, or
Nope.
were you ever curious to ask him, or were you just?
He would, I'd do any good to ask him. I knew he wouldn't tell me anyway. So.
Well, when we first started the program, she couldn't call me at the office where I was working, and I couldn't call her from there. So she would have to call the company office. Company office would get a hold of me. I would have to go out and find a payphone because I was before cell phones, or at least before we had a cell phone. Then call her back and see what she needed. So that didn't work out real well, That's back in the day when we used to go out and cut our own tree every year. And it always looked smaller in the forest than it did when we got it home. And it was a Sunday evening. I was supposed to go bowling. The weather wasn't all that good, so I didn't want the tree to get all wet.
They puts it in the house.
So I said,
Like
well, we'll just put it in the
halfway
stand and
across.
we'll put it in the corner of the house and tie it up to the wall. We always had to tie it to the wall. So we tied it to the wall. I went bowling. She wasn't real happy with me because I brought the tree in.
There were needles everywhere. Yeah, and it was all wet. The whole carpet was wet because it had been raining, so the whole carpet was soaked. And so then he goes bowling, and I'm sitting on the telephone talking on the counter, just sitting on the counter talking. All of a sudden, these bees start swarming out of the tree all around my head, all over the tons and tons of bees because it was warm, and there was a bee nest in the tree, and because it got warm in the house, they came out of the tree, and so they're just swarming everywhere. And so I said, I gotta go, talk to my friend, and so I get the vacuum cleaner out, and I'm chasing the bees with my vacuum cleaner pole, trying to catch him. Yeah, and he's bowling.
You're vacuuming up the bees.
Yeah, yes, and there were a lot of bees. There weren't just a few bees, there were a lot of bees.
I'm sure you got stung.
No, I didn't get stung.
Really?
Nope, didn't get stung. Nope, that was not fun.
No.
So, there again, I wasn't too happy with him another time in our marriage.
I bowled really good that night. Anniversary cruise, probably the best decision we ever made.
Yeah.
It was fun, wasn't it fun?
It was a really fun trip.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I'll do it again.
wonderful.
I'm glad.
And I will have to say I was very reluctant.
Really?
Yes.
Was that your idea first?
Mm-hmm. That's always been my dream to do that, because we went on our one cruise, and there was a big family there, and they were celebrating their 50th anniversary with their whole family. And I said, that's when I saw that, that's what I want to do for our 50th. So it worked out.
It was a big group on the cruise too.
24 of us. And they kept thinking that who was it that was, they thought that either Margaret and Jerry or Carmen and Chuck were the couple celebrating their 50th. We never did get asked if it was us. Because they always thought it was either Margaret and Jerry or Carmen and Chuck, because they both had the white hair, you know. And so we never got asked, but you know, are you the couple that's celebrating your 50th? No, it's not us. But I mean, I kept wanting to get asked, and we never got asked.
No.
Yeah, not once.
No, not once.
Well, and everyone was thinking that Ruth and Aunt Liz were a couple.
Right. Well, that's because of Jim. Jim and your dad had the waiter convinced that they were a couple.
It's funny. Well, they're always gambling together.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny.
that was a fun trip. Be nice if we ever had the means to do it again.
And little Devin, the year after it was our 51st, remember little Devin said, well, we could go over to the spaghetti factory for dinner for our 51st. And she said, well, this is really nice, Grandma. I love the spaghetti factory. But can next year we just do another cruise because that was more fun. Sure.
Anything you say.
Right.
Up downstairs, push me in front of all the naked women in the museum.
That wasn't me.
Great
That was your
patrons.
daughter.
Then leave me stranded there and walk back and laugh. Think that was funny. Pushing me up behind that woman that had the broad beam as big as this table, right dead behind her, so I could watch her cheeks go up and down like yo-yos. That was wonderful.
Yes. No, that was the painting one. That was in the National Gallery, and
That was so funny.
yeah, and Janet was pushing you at that point,
Yeah.
and she just thought it was hilarious that all the nude paintings she just parked in front of there, and then
Right.
the next one. I think you were probably on painting 6 or 7 when you said there's a lot of naked people on this art gallery.
And I did not fart in your face at the Russian or the ruins
Roman
in
baths.
Bath.
No,
I think
no,
he
you
would
didn't
know.
at the Roman baths. It was when you were back in London. You're at the top. You're in Victoria train station.
Oh,
You were going down the stairs to go onto the tube,
oh,
and I bent, and you stood up, and I bent down to compact your wheelchair. So I was right behind you,
oh.
and that's when it happened. It's just this loud sound.
Well, that was because you were squishing the wheelchair together and it was scraping on the bottom of the cement. That's what that noise
Oh, was it?
Yeah, Yeah.
That's the sulfur released from the scraping of the pavement.
right,
Yeah.
yes. So,
And I told Aunt Janet when we were on the tube, but she was crying. She was laughing so hard. She thought that was hilarious.
we had some wonderful times in London.
Yeah.
Both trips.
Yes, we
Both
did.
trips were great. Wonderful,
We did.
wonderful.
What's something that you would like to be remembered for?
For loving my family. For loving my family. And being remembered that I think I have the most wonderful family in the whole world. I was so very, very grateful that I have this family.
Family first.
Yep.
That's our philosophy, and it's always been our philosophy.
Okay, are we done?
We're done. You did well. Not that hard, was it?
Good, glad that's over. And,
Love you too.
love you too, Bob. You know how much I love you, or else I wouldn't even done it. Okay, what time are we, do we know what time we're doing dinner tonight?
6:30, I think.
Yes, 6:30.
I'm gonna have to, yeah, cut it, so. Am I being filmed right this second?
Yeah.
Oh, but I was talking to you right now?
Yeah.
Why, that wasn't supposed to be
Well,
on
you
there.
can cut that
It's all
out,
we cut
honey.
out.
You can edit everything.
We can pause. We can take a break.
Just do it.
Forgot one significant thing about your grandmother.
Yes. What was that?
She loves to play with those little toys she's got in the closet over there.
The vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we need a pause because I need to get rid of my 805
Perfect.
and my coffee.
Okay.